Great, so let's start. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this month's Food Safety Conversation. My name is Namita Garg. I'm a senior consultant with Food Safety Works. Now, as we approach the festive season, we felt that this was the right time to start this month's conversation on something which is a very integral part of any occasion in India and something that we love in India, which is sweets, or what's commonly known as mithai. Nothing is complete without mithai in the country. Sweets have historically had a very important part in the Indian culture and in our cuisine, and it's a traditional way, whether it's religions, it's communities, it's generations, to express joy, to share, to express gratitude, to share news. And even a reflex action at times when someone wishes you luck for something, and an instant response that, at least in the north, you have is "Aapke muh mein ghee shakar." So sugar is something which comes in all the way through. So it also brings in a lot of familiarity and nostalgia, and each family has a variation to the recipes, the classic recipes, as well as classic customs. So our conversation today is about sweets, the evolution of sweets over the years, the industry as a whole, as well as various trends and the challenges in adapting to modern trends, and also the nutritional, the food safety, and the regulatory aspect to it. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome our expert panel today. We've got Mr. Chaitanya Mopala, who's CEO of Almond House. Almond House is a gourmet house based in Hyderabad, specializing in premium Indian sweets and savories with a wide range of traditional and global delicacies. It started in Hyderabad in 1989 with one outlet, and there's now 11 stores across the city, including at the domestic and international terminals, as well as serving 30 cities across India and globally across US and Canada as well. Welcome, Chaitanya. We have Mr. Feroz Naqvi, who's the founder and director general of Federation of Sweets and Namkeen Manufacturers. FSNM, or the Federation of Sweets and Namkeen Manufacturer, represents the entire sweets and namkeen industry in the country, in both the manufacturing and the allied sectors. He's also got a company, Mashade Multicom, which is India's largest publication house for agro and food processing industry, with 5 publications under it. There's also India's first and only agro and food processing app and a news portal that they have. And of course, B2B events that they do, including the World Mithai and Namkeen Convention, which is held annually, along with the Indian Ice Cream Expo. And we have, welcome, Mr. Naqvi.
Thank you.
And we have finally Chef Ajay Markan, who's a culinary advisor and food critic. Chef Markan holds experience of over 3 decades across brands and countries. A recipient of many accolades and medals, he's a member of the Indian Chef Federation Forum, and he's now a freelance culinary advisor and critic. And he's using his vast experience with pre-opening and culinary operations to bring in value to establishments. Welcome, Chef.
Thank you.
Great. To begin with, I'm going to talk about the evolution of Indian sweets over time, from traditional homemade or your neighborhood halwai bought mithai. It's now gone gourmet. There's designer packaging. It's available online, and of course, it's next generation friendly. So the sweets and confectionery industry, it's evolved considerably over the years in terms of consumption patterns, in terms of the trends, in terms of how businesses engage with the industry and with consumers as well. And apart from addition of exotic ingredients, like you have cranberry mithai as well, you've also got types and textures which have evolved. And then, of course, dietary preferences. So you get dairy-free rasmalai, for instance. You get vegan burfi. You get gluten-free. You get keto sweets as well. So starting with you, Chaitanya, at the Almond House, you have over time introduced a lot of twists and innovations to your menu. So for instance, you have Kaju Pista sandwich, you've got the almond butter balls, and something I'm quite fascinated with is the DIY kits that you have for laddus and halwas and burfis. So do you want to tell us a little bit about what led you to revamp an otherwise traditional sweet menu?
I think I was on mute earlier, so I was saying thanks for having me on this. Addressing your question, I don't think we've made a concerted effort to kind of revamp our menu. These things are gradual and they're iterative and they're driven by so many things, primarily what consumers want, right? If anything, I would say we're not doing enough of it and we're not doing it quickly enough. And I don't think it's unique to our business, to Almond House that per se. The whole industry is taking a shift into primarily driven by consumer demand and primarily driven by this desire to get younger people, to get a wider audience, come interact with our brands and interact with our products. So one of the things is that as a brand at Almond House, we inherited this as part of it, right? For instance, we've always been ready to change to meet the demand, and change is part of the DNA of the brand. For example, DIY kits that you brought up came up very interestingly during the first lockdown, primarily because the state that we operate in, the regulatory lockdown regulations were so ambiguous. This particular state had somehow, kind of worded their lockdown notification in such a way to say that delivery of food is an essential activity, but delivery of cooked food is not. And we had to kind of make up sales in some fashion without complying with that regulation. So what we did is that we tried to break it down into things that people can do at home. And the idea also was, we wanted to create an activity for the family around our category that they can do easily. And at that time, the assessment of risk was so high amongst consumers. We wanted to create something that they could heat themselves, because one thing that reassures people is applying heat to food, because they know that the virus is kind of denatured. So accumulation of these things kind of brings out products like these, mostly necessity, also consumer insight, consumer feedback, and demand from their side.
And that's interesting that you say about the regulation. It's something I wasn't aware of, but a very innovative way to try and tackle that, while of course, stay active with your consumer base. So that's great. Just moving on to Feroz. Indian sweet industry is of course the oldest thriving professions and businesses, and it's always been ancestral or family driven, family owned. You're not directly, of course, involved with manufacturing, but you have been instrumental in revolutionizing the industry in many ways. So as I spoke earlier, you've, with FS&M, you've managed to bring in manufacturers of a largely unorganized sector, so whether it's small, medium, or large, under one umbrella with an objective of giving a voice to them. You've brought in an environment for them to sustain, to modernize and expand their business with technological and networking inputs. And then you have a publishing house for the industry, for the agro and processing industry, with the Mithai and Namkeen Times being one of the publications that you do. And of course, the World Mithai Namkeen convention that you have, which is unique in its own way. So please share with us what led you to actually get into this space, and what led to the beginning of FS&M, and how have you seen the industry change over the years that you've been doing this?
Okay, a couple of questions, one after the other. But let me just give you a small brief how we started this. In India, we have a trend that when there's a problem comes, we all unite. Otherwise, we don't really, give, much of thought about it. But when the GST came, and that was, one of the binding factors for us 4 to 5 years back. And I mean, a bit of arrogance was there in the government departments and ministries. And when we were coming to know about the GST, GST rate, we were coming to know that it is going to be 18%. Somebody was telling 12%. So many things. So that united us, and that was driven by the actual seniors of the industry, senior CMD of Haldiram or Bikanerwala or Haldiram Nagpur or Bikaji, all these seniors who are all 60 plus, and they had real faith on me. Firoz, you can unite us, and then we can take the things further. That gave me an opportunity to to think about that. See, look at this industry, which is the actual engine of the food processing industry in the country. uh, I think there is a history of processed food products or packed products of around 130, 40 years back in USA. But what I say always, even with Chaitanya also, that even before 100 years of this invention of processed food products, or 200 years before, there was some mithai wala or some laddu wala was sitting in at Tirupati Balaji, selling some laddus and selling some kind of a sweet or sugary products. So we are the oldest food processors of the world. And why not? There is a good opportunity with this industry. And the best thing happened with this industry is, one example is just sitting in front of us. Chaitanya is the flag bearer, and is leading the company from the front, taking all the responsibilities. We have this generation who has all they have come from best of the universities, best of the education backgrounds, and best of the colleges. Mithai wala, every mithai wala, even 40, 50 years back, they used to be the richest people of the town, of the city, of the village also. But there was a tradition that they used to do business, traditionally sitting at the gaddi and selling mithai. But when India modernized after 90s, and when India globalized its economy, and liberalized its economy, uh, these people were getting best of the education. And when these guys started coming in this industry, that led the revolution. Not me, but the guys who are in 20s and 30s are my real power, my real motivators. When I talk to Chaitanya or Shaishav Mittal, or in Dadu family or in other families, so many youngsters I speak, I really feel that these are not real. I mean, they are not karchi kadai wala mithai walas. They're actual business people, doing business with all automation, all IT things, with suit and tie. And that was the point when we started all this activity. And obviously, when you do something like this, you need media to support you. That's how we came up with the monthly magazine. Then that was the time we thought we are getting, I mean, we are all coming together, and in one meeting we are getting 700, 800 people in a meeting. You will not believe. We called first meeting 4 years back in Delhi, and we got 700 people from the country coming for a meeting. My hall, my lobby, everything was full in the hotel. So we thought, I mean, so many people are going, why can't we utilize this platform for educating them with the latest technologies, latest innovations, ingredients, trends, packaging. So many things are there where we can educate them with the best of the world people. So that led to the event. So all these activities, one after the other, mostly simultaneously in a very short span of time, in 5, 6 months, we did all. And we are now in fifth year of the federation, where our fold is increasing, multiplying every month. People are pouring in. Today I can say we have a command on 20,000 shops across the country. We can, in one day, we can send a message to them, or to make them aware about it. So that is the entire story behind it. Maybe more with your other questions. Thank you so much.
Excellent, excellent. That's wonderful to know, and of course, a great achievement in 5 years. It's a huge feat to get everyone together, and of course, the confidence. And like you said, it's the new age entrepreneurs that are really leading the family-run businesses from the front. So that's wonderful to know. Chef, Now, you have experience of over 3 decades across countries. You've worked in various countries in the Middle East, in Uzbekistan, and then, of course, across India. And you're also known for your innovative approach to cuisine, particularly Indian cuisine in terms of recipe development, in terms of plating, presentation. Can you share with us your experience working hands-on on the changing trends in Indian sweets preparation and consumption, and also what you look at in menu development?
During my time in the branded hotel, we always focus on the classical Indian sweets because people love the Indian sweet. They will eat the dessert, pastry, and everything, but still they stick on the Indian sweet. That one also traditional one. But after 4 5 years, if you see the trend is changing slowly. The people are celebrating the whatever is a festival or any occasion they are doing, but they need the Indian sweet. And over there now there is a new trend came, uh, Indian sweet with lot of brand. They are focusing on the improving the presentation and the Indian sweet without compromise the taste and the quality. This is the one thing is over there. The uh, everyone is doing, and this one is called as a modern Indian sweets. So wherever you go, people they love. We're focusing on the packaging and all these things. But Indian sweet play a big role in our life. That is there.
Right. Now, of course, we spoke about modernization, and
Hmm.
a change is from the old to the new is never easy,
Hmm.
particularly in an industry like the sweet industry, which of course you've all experienced. Chaitanya, just getting back to you, you've of course got a family-owned business, something that was started by your father about 3 decades ago, a little over 3 decades ago, and you've scaled it considerably. You've remodeled it entirely, and I think you've also said you've done it to meet the modern Instagram needs. That's something that you've spoken about without, of course, diluting the brand. So, and this was despite, I think, not wanting to actually run a traditional business when you came in. You didn't want to get into that. So, what challenges have you had from the time that you've started in actually getting, the team to adapt to modern needs and modern trends and transform? And how have you overcome them? I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Since the conversation is about food safety, I'll kind of, because the whole thing is a challenge, right? There's so much texture to it and there's so many layers to it. So let me kind of center my comments on challenges at the kitchen. So our home used to be on the 3rd floor and our kitchen used to be on the 2nd and 1st floor. So we lived in the same building where the kitchen for Almond House used to be. This is because they, the previous generation thought, and in retrospect, I would subscribe to that now, that control over the kitchen is everything. And the only way they felt that they can control quality and they can control process, whatever they had, was by being there at that time. And being away from that was an unfathomable thing for them, right? How are you going to control things? How are you going to make sure things don't go astray? So that was the setup, and that was the kind of view for how to keep things at that time. And what, in terms of challenges, around food safety, everything. Primarily, I tell people it took me 3 years to get people off the floor. So all these people you sit on the floor and do the work, right? So getting them onto a table system, bringing them up there, kind of creating a momentum to change is the challenge here. And once you've kind of gone past that critical mass of changes, then now it's part of the culture now. They know every week there's something new going to happen, and they are the drivers of change. you have these sort of champions for change within your team, and creating a culture of working as a team. All of these are challenges, but yeah, getting people to understand that handling less is more. You're getting people to appreciate that the less I handle a product, the safer it's going to be, or the longer it's going to last. Those are mindset shifts that took a long time, but once you cross that bridge, now it's not something I have to do or anybody has to do. Everybody is looking for change, everybody is looking for innovation. They want to get the job done easier. Where can I mechanize? Where can I automate? These are questions that come from the team now, because they every subsequent year they want to have a better process, a faster process, a more efficient process. All, of course, without diluting quality is a given. So yeah, the primary challenges were getting people to kind of think beyond how we do it today and how we can do it, and how we can manufacture, we can produce traditional products in traditional ways, in small scale, and not necessarily alluding to industrialization, but in small scales, in a very sort of handcrafted manner, in a very systematic and safe environment. And most of the time, I think it's a failure of imagination, because most people can't imagine what it could be like. And it really is about kind of taking that leap, moving somewhere, changing your facility, taking baby steps. There's so many things that add up to this, right? The number of air changes in that room, the type of uniform people wear. Is it a practical uniform? Is it not? How often do you wash the uniform? Who washes the uniform? Does the factory wash the uniform, or the employee washes the uniform? So each of these things, it's not something that I don't think one should expect to do overnight. And I also don't think one should expect to be a finite process. So it's constantly iterative. You keep doing, you keep building one step after the other, another step. And as you do it, confidence builds and momentum builds, and then it kind of snowballs on its own.
Okay. And I think something that Feroz had rightly said, the important thing is also leading from the front, which you've obviously done, because it is a mindset shift, which is not an easy one. And that's the crux of everything, because once you've got that, then you've started getting imagination rolling, and you get them to actually excited to come in with another idea or another way of doing things. But yes, leading from front is something which is very, very important. And you're obviously doing that really well. Feroz, you of course would have had a lot of challenges, like you've shared, that just setting up, and it was a collective effort, everyone coming in wanting to do this. But considering the members that you have, and the kind of association that you've got, how receptive were the small scale, particularly small scale manufacturers? Because I know your website for the expo, of course, you mentioned it's the only show in the world which has this. And interestingly, you say that this is the only place where you can find basin and ghee and ID software and machinery under one roof. So for getting your member base and small scale manufacturers into this kind of a setup, of course, there was a need, which is why you had the number of members who came in for your meetings. But how open were they to this idea, and what challenges did you have?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the size of the industry, it is around 1.1 to 2 lakh crores in the country, which is a huge amount. If really government sees it and see the effort of the industry, we are one of the biggest contributors of GST and other taxes from the food industry. And in this in this entire chain, in this entire pyramid, we have we have companies like Haldiram. If we put together both the Haldirams, they're around about 9 to 10,000 crores, and on top of the pyramid. But when we start coming down, the pyramid size, increases, and you have a huge number of companies under 50 crores or 100 under 100 crores, and these are the people we call smaller manufacturers. Otherwise, after them, then the at the bottom of the pyramid, we have a huge number, but that is mostly unorganized, and they are into multiple products. They just call them mithai walas because they are treating milk in some other way, selling milk but having some pedas kept, and maybe they are called mithai walas, but I don't call them mithai walas. They could be our future target. But smaller companies are the real growth oriented people who are actually giving the growth to the industry, and they are modernizing very fast. They are the biggest buyers of machines right now. They are the biggest provider of the growth in the industry, because I have seen in the last 4 5 years of this effort, I have seen people from smaller cities, Moradabad, people from smaller cities like Bareilly, or even I was there in Kakinada in Andhra Pradesh, small city of 5 lakh people population, just 5 lakh. In UP, you have bigger villages who have 2 3 lakh population. Kakinada just 5 lakh people. You have best of the facilities and best of the mithai shops. They're spending on showroom. Mahinder Mithai Wala, such a beautiful showroom. Suruchi Foods, such a beautiful showroom that they've invested in. And these are the people who are actually giving growth to the industry. Maybe 4 5 years back, many of them had lesser than 5 crore turnovers, who are touching 50 crores, or maybe some of the people are touching more than 100 crores. So they have all invested in the right technologies at the right time. And branding, packaging and branding is very important. It is no more a just gatte ka dabba kept at a tarazu, and people are just selling some laddus and things. People are investing in huge amounts. I saw packagings in Punjab, you will not believe. I don't know if I'm taking much time, but I would love to share this thought. Average size of shadi ka nyota, or wedding invite, what we call average size of the invitation card, the spending is 5,000 rupees. In Punjab, if you are inviting 500 people or 1,000 people, you are gifting 5,000 rupees mithai box along with some gourmet and some dry fruits and a beautiful invitation. 4 to 5,000 rupees gift you are giving, and it is a very mm, very nominal amount, I'm telling you. Otherwise, people are even gifting much higher gifts, 30,000 40,000 rupees also, to one of the each of their people they want to invite. So this
Right.
is the way this industry is explored. I always talk to the family Gopal Sweets has in Chandigarh. They are the biggest sellers of these mithai gifts, wedding gifts, and these people are really focusing on Lovely Sweets. If you go there, you will see two big floors, not less than, each is around more than 2,000 square feet, each floor, only for gifting, only for wedding gifts, only for birthday purposes. I mean, they are doing, I mean, whole building is, each floor is devoted to one thing. People are exploring, we are really, uh, mm, we are really selling emotions. We are selling all that nostalgia what you used in your initial introduction. It is real nostalgia, but still we are losing our business to so many newcomers in the country. So many new trends like chocolate and so many things. So we are just modernizing, and I see a great future for the smaller companies. They can just start. And one more thing I would like to add: people used to have one shop. They used to focus on one shop. As Chaitanya was telling, एक shop है, उसके ऊपर कारखाना है आपका, या उसके पीछे कारखाना है, and you have a home upstairs. You're controlling everything, your shop, your कारखाना, and you're there at your home also. But today, people have stopped standing on the galla. They are focusing more on their production. They're focusing more on expansion. Hardly people go to their factories every day, and they just expand like anything. So now, when we meet in today's time, आपके कितने showroom है? How many showroom? It is the first question I take. how many outlets you have. People are having 150, 200. People are having 70, 80. On an average, people are having 4, 5. So this is really good trend where lot of addition of beautiful showrooms as well as products, and all led by these smaller companies, and they are modernizing. They're concerned about food safety also. There's a huge opportunity for the companies like you who can really provide them and give them hand holding where they can freely work, and in a culture they can even target the export market as well.
Absolutely. No, and you're right. I mean, the focus has changed from just sitting, at the gala and just the old way of doing things. So branding and distribution, of course, is core focus now. And like you rightly said, I mean, with sweet shops, what used to be a small sweet shop now it can beat any maybe jewelry showroom or any other
So
showroom in terms of the scale and just the kind of quality that it is. So you can walk in. There's times when even you're walking into stores which are sweet stores, and you're walking in and you stop for a moment because you're just in awe of what the environment is, which is very good to see. And like you said, of course, a lot of potential for the industry going forward. Great. So, chef, now, of course, with the restaurants and hotels, now most halwais are extremely skilled. जो हाथ का हुनर जो कहते हैं, they're brilliant at that, but
That
they're
is
not
there.
technically qualified or they're not professionally qualified. So how, in your experience, have you managed to get them? Because eventually, of course, large scale manufacturing, it becomes different with hotels and restaurants, getting them to adapt to, new menu changes, new trends, new way of doing things. How does that training come in your experience?
So as you say, they are technically very sound. That's I'm 100% agree. Technically, they are very sound on the hygiene standard and all. Which one they already implement in the hotels. They following the staff, and plus there is a training on that. Uh, you can say twice a week there is a training on the hygiene standard, on the basic standards trainings given to the entire kitchen staff. They are following that one. Plus there is a supervisor in the kitchen, CDP, DCDP. They are the responsible for this. And the top of that, there is a FSI. They take a round. So entire hotel, restaurant, these people, they are grooming in such a way. Is it tough? Yes, but they are grooming in such a way they follow the standards. They are doing modern work and the as well as traditional work in a modern way. This is a training on them also. So these people perform on that, and the plus when they will put the buffet in the restaurants and banquet weddings and all, so they follow the same way as the we are doing in the bakery. Small petite portion, even the halwais also, they are making very creative desserts, creative, attractive, and in the small portion, because the person came, whoever came in the wedding or in the restaurant or buffet, he want to be eat small portion or everything. So he want to be taste that one. So what they will do, they are doing on the work on such a manner that they are working on the focusing on the display, how the Indian sweet they will work in such a way so they can display and merge with the bakery product to give the uh, display look from the is not even to understand the people this is a desert Indian sweet or this is a bakery sweets. So they are working in such a different way.
Right. So again, it comes in from training and creating an awareness
Yeah,
that there
that's
is
there.
a possibility of doing something differently.
Yeah.
Right. Just going on to the next round. So of course, consumers have changed a lot over the years, and they're a lot more aware and mindful of what food choices they're doing. and increasingly shifting towards healthier options like less sugar or no fried items. And of course, with the past year, immunity strengthening has become a popular thing that everyone wants to get into. And FSSAI, the Food Safety Standards Authority of India, of course, through its Eat Right initiative, Eat Right India, is also promoting the reduction of HFSS, which is high fat, sugar, and salt, by reducing added sugars, fats, and phasing out trans fats. Indian sweets have traditionally always had dried fruits, so they've been healthy and immunity strengthening in many ways. But individually, how in your areas are you focusing on a lot more, and what changes are you doing to support this? So, Chaitanya, at Almond House, you of course, do you have separate healthier options, or is it just a part of regular practice that you have? And you customize as well. So, do you engage with your consumers a lot more on this based on what their dietary preferences are?
Yeah. So as a brand, Almond House is about less is more. So historically, the brand that we inherited, we were known for being considerably less sweet than the rest of the market. Too much of anything, it should be considered an adulterant. So, even though sugar is part of the product, if I put too much of it, I would kind of label that as adulteration. We have a trademark that we own, that we print on all our packaging and we use on our customer communications. It's called responsible indulgence. So all my packaging kind of prods the customer and says that we advocate responsible indulgence, and we say, please consume our product as in moderation and as part of a balanced diet. So I have some qualms with this. I have some gripes with for example, Almond House doesn't do sugar-free sweets, because what is sugar-free? You're going to put an artificial sugar replacement, you're going to put a synthetic sweetener, or you're going to use a natural sweetener like stevia. But we need to know that it's not just the sugar in the product that carries a glycemic index, or calories, it's all the other things. So if I have cashew, I have milk, those carry calories as well, and they have a glycemic index. So I don't want for my conscience to bear the weight where a granddaughter buys a kg of so-called sugar-free sweets and tells her diabetic grandfather that this is sugar-free, you can eat it. It doesn't work that way, right? And we shouldn't pretend like it works that way. So our focus is more on reducing. See, traditionally, these products are about indulgence, right? And it's about celebrating, and it's about treating yourself. And traditionally, they were eaten in moderation. People in our country were never so wealthy that they could eat sweets every day, right? So what we kind of push forward is, consume our products, but consume them responsibly. And we ensure that we do whatever we can to make it as healthy. I don't like to say healthy. I like to say less unhealthy. That's the way I look at these products. There's nothing wrong with them. For example, dietary preferences, which you brought up. Most of our dry fruit mithai that is made across the country, like take a kaju barfi, for example, it's a staple, right? A kaju katli is inherently vegan. There is no ghee used in kaju katli except for the greasing of the tray for release, right? So if we can do away with that, then I can, I have customers who come to me primarily because they are vegan and they are looking for vegan alternatives. There's not too much engineering we need to do to make these products. And a lot of these products are inherently healthy, right? Except for the sugar, the refined sugar. So what do we do about replacing the refined sugar? For example, we are putting out a whole range of FMCG products that are centered around jaggery and snacking around jaggery. how do we step away from the refinement of the sweetness, and how do we kind of bring these products to you in a more exciting, more intuitive way for you to consume them. Those are a couple of things that we're doing. But my go-to response to that is, for example, post-COVID, everybody was making, I saw immunity ceiling fans and immunity mops. So it's too noisy of a space, and you're trying too hard to sell a story that probably doesn't exist there. And consumers are not stupid, right? They're smart people. They're especially people in our sort of positioning. They're very, very well educated people. They're so exposed to so much information. If I tell them that this burfi gives you immunity, I don't know to what extent they buy it. I'd rather tell them that this burfi is good for you. It's good for you if you consume it in moderation. It's good for you to share with your family. It's made in a safe environment. Those are more sticky points than to kind of jump ahead and say, your vitamin levels are going to increase from consuming this. I mean, other people may have different views on this, but this is my personal view, and that's how I model my business around.
And it's very rightly said. I mean, immunity was the most used and the most abused word in the past year, and still is, sadly. But you're right. I mean, it's best. There are ways of correcting usage and indulgence. So it's, of course, less is more. And like you said, jaggery. So there's always natural alternatives as well that you can look at, which is brilliant that Almond House focuses on that. Feroz, collectively as an association, what are the steps and best practices that you advocate in terms of eat right or just the healthier alternatives?
Yeah, I mean, as a federation, we are very closely working with FSSAI, and initially, we were a bit of ignored, and they were just passing laws. But with a lot of efforts, we somehow now become the part and parcel of the decision making activities, and now they are really taking us very seriously and giving opportunity to us to present our views. But yes, when it comes to food safety in the country, or eat right, or we traditionally we have been eating right only. It is only the people who are the consumers, who are called consumers, they are not living correctly. We originally we are laborious people. Originally we are people who will wake up early, who will sleep early, who will take a nap after the lunch. This is all in our traditions. 100, 200, 400, 1000 years, you go look at the history, and you will be getting the same references your mother or your father or your grandmother or your grandfather would be giving. So traditionally we are those kind of people. But now definitions are changing. Our lifestyles have changed drastically, especially in the cities like Bangalore, Mumbai, Pune, or Gurgaon. Things have really changed. So we have to change our fooding pattern as well. Eat right is something very, very I mean, it's a great initiative by the FSSAI. But we have to think holistically. We have to we cannot just walk on one block and leave the other blocks. We have to work overall. We have to not only educate the consumer, but also the industry, the supplier, the supply chain industry, entire food chain. We have to educate. We are only focusing on the, maybe you can quote later on, if we look at the percentage of the processed food, including the sweets and namkeen, what we call farsan or bhujia, it is just 7-8% of the total entire food chain of the country, and we are actually targeting 8% people. What about 90 to 93% food products? Where is that? Why we are not talking about that? Why we are not talking about the pesticide residue in the vegetables? the wrong farming practices. People use nala water and what you call drainage water in the farms. Why we are not focusing on their things? Because they are the bigger vote bank. If we are working really for the betterment of the consumer for the country, we should look at the entire thing. So eat right will take proper shape when the entire chain will improve. Look at the dairy industry. They have done tremendous. Indian dairy industry. We are the biggest. Makers of milk in the world. Why? Because companies like Amul or Karnataka Milk Federation or Punjab Milk Federation or Andhra Milk Federation. They all came at a level where they started focusing on the farmer at the ground level. They go every day and collect one bucket milk from each farmer. Millions and millions of farmers are connected, and they are spreading right practices. And look at the result. Look at the outcome. Still, we are processing very less milk, I would say, but still we are at the level of around 8th or 9th position in the world right now, and it is multiplying every year because we have focused on the ground level. In the food industry also, eat right will only come when we will focus from the ground level. You have to you recently we have made the standards for the sweets. Very helpful thing. More to much more to do in that, but definitely initiative is very right. But what about the standards for vegetables? What about the standards for the fruits? What about for standards for the ghee or other things which are basin or so many things what we consume. We are the biggest consumers of ghee, milk, basin, spices, so many things. What about the standards for those things? I'm ultimately making my mithai or my namkeen or my snack out of those ingredients where I don't have much of control.
Yeah.
If the ghee has got right ISI mark or right parameters printed on the box, for me it is the best ghee because you are saying it is best. But when I'm testing in my lab, it is not up to the mark. And if somebody is not doing it and just using that ghee, then the problem coming to him, not to the ghee wala. So
Yeah.
we have to check the entire chain. We have to check the entire supply chain and the forward and backward linkages. That is very important. Much more to talk, but maybe in next episodes we can discuss more on these things.
No,
You may have some.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, so I mean, it is a holistic approach. And like you said, of course, sweets, mithai, there's various components, right? It's not just one individual thing. It's not just fruits or it's not just milk. There's various components. And the only way to actually get something right is if you address every aspect of the supply chain, which is crucial. But yes, a step has been taken. So I think now it's really pushing and making sure that we get the entire chain looked at. Um, Chef, now with hotels and restaurants, of course, like you mentioned buffets and banquets earlier, and of course in restaurants, the normal menus. How do you look at balancing the right balance of health in a menu when looking at restaurants or hotels or even banquets? Because again, sweets is indulgence, and especially when you talk about weddings, so it's a completely different thing altogether, and
Yeah.
especially Indian weddings. So, what is the area of balance that you look at in menu development?
See, normally we are looking for when we do the menu for the banqueting and all restaurant and all these things, it's based on what is the guest requirement. Nowadays, is the most of the requirement is sugar-free dessert must be there. This is the one thing. There is a lot of people in our weddings and invitees, so they are sugar-free. And another things now, people are looking for the gluten-free and the vegan desserts. They are also looking for that. So all these things we will keep in our mind. And for the sugar-free, as we discussed before, also instant on the place of the stevia and the artificial sweets, people start focusing on the jaggery. So most of the sweets they are made by the jaggery, and this one, they are people moving to that. So this is the way we will keep the balancing, but sugar sweet is always there.
It's the crux of everything.
Yeah.
It's got to be that indulgence.
Yeah.
We've started getting questions in, and I'm going to take one last round before we get to questions. Of course, we spoke of food safety, and this is about food safety practices and standards and regulatory guidelines. FSSAI has standards and guidelines for the industry and manufacturing. Of course, as Feroz said, that there's still a lot more work to be done. There's also global standards which are there. So you have ISO, you have HACCP, you have FSSC, etc., which are generic and they're not linked to Indian manufacturing or food items. Chaitanya, at Almond House, you have a practice where you allow customers into your kitchen to see and experience the kitchen and also co-create menu items with the chefs. How important do you think this level of transparency is for the customer, for confidence building, and also for the employees to just get that awareness and that constant compliance to standards? And also, when you talk about global standards, like I said, ISO, HACCP, I believe you were also part of the HACCP process in compliance. Do you think that those standards can be applied to the Indian context, or it's global best practices that really need to be looked at?
Let me start with the whole open kitchen part of your question. Is the reason we did that is, our kitchen is on a very expensive real estate in the middle of the city, on a very busy commercial road. The reason we did that is, like Feroz Bhai was mentioning earlier, the industry has taken a shift in terms of retail experience, and it's easy to put money down to have a fancy store, to have very nice lights and air conditioning and a good retail experience. And it's easy for consumers to think that anybody with a fancy store has their production facilities also in equal polish. And we wanted, and that was kind of a challenge for us at a marketing level, right? Because we were kind of, despite having put our resources against HACCP, for example, or having a whole team of people taking care of ISO, the cost that is incurred there is not recognized by the customer, because he thinks everybody who has a fancy store probably runs a very, very well-established facility. So we wanted to shift the conversation from the retail experience to the production facility. That's the reason why we put this kitchen up and we created this open kitchen concept. Our store managers are incentivized on how many visitors they bring on a monthly basis. This is pre-COVID, of course, we've really cut down now. We bring school children, we bring college kids, because we wanted to also show people how this is, what is happening behind the doors. And we want that customer to go to another store and demand to see the kitchen, because this comes from two understandings. One is that an industry leader, a leader in whatever market it is, it could be national, global, or for, in our case, a city, for example. If you're leading the market, it is not necessarily judged by the metric of how much sales you do, how many stores you have, etc. An industry leader is responsible for setting standards for the rest of the industry, right? And how do we do that without, if I am the only person having these standards, it doesn't really help me much. Because if there is an untoward incident at any other business, for instance, it affects the entire industry. We all get affected. We're all collectively seen as a category, right? So we all need to kind of up our standards. And how do we do that? By kind of shifting the consumer conversation around it. So we get consumers to come in and see how we do things, and by way of that, ask others also how you do things and demand to be seen. And I think we've been fairly successful in that. Now, coming to your question about Do global standards apply in Indian manufacturing processes, or should we come up with our own standards, or should we adopt global best practices? So, when I got into this business, I was told a story that my father told me, that when he started the business, he had a ustad. Our kitchens are run by ustads in those days. This man used to wear a white shirt and a white dhoti, and he'll do his entire day work without a spot on his clothing. And I call them, mother's kitchen principles. So whatever my mother would do in her kitchen are common sense, and I bet you can extrapolate them to one of these global standards, but they're much more easier to implement for us at a at a localized level. And I also see that the regulator is taking huge steps in order to regularize this industry and kind of bring everybody up to standard, which in my mind is too ambitious, if you ask me. There are common sense things that we need to do first that are easily implementable by everybody, easy to get people to subscribe to without resistance, that we need to do first, rather than kind of aim for the home run at the get-go, right? So I think inherently this industry, as it has been handed down to us, there's so many hygiene practices that are programmed into the production of these products. There's so many different things. For example, washing protocols. We call them protocols now. We have a flow chart now, and we have a guide to make sure they're implemented. But all these things they've been being done for hundreds of years. Maybe a few bad apples have kind of, we have a bad reputation, but it's easy to bring it back up to standard. It's difficult to apply. Take HACCP, for example. What is HACCP? HACCP is just assessing where things can go wrong, or once they've gone wrong, figuring out at which point it has gone wrong and closing that hole, right? And anybody who runs a kitchen does this day in and day out, right? It's just that the whole acronym and certification gives some weight to it, which I don't think is really necessary, because consumers see through that. Consumers know, right? There like businesses in this category have been running for multiple generations. Their customers have also been running for multiple generations. So, a family's mithai wala is handed down to them generation to generation. And that's because of the trust that family holds against this brand. So there are a lot of these practices that we have inherited as part of this business, but what is missing is codification, documentation, and of course enforcement. The regulators coming up with really people like us, we may be able to comply, we may be able to kind of comply with whatever frameworks they come in, because we've built the infrastructure. But if the end goal is to get compliance from across the board, from small people to large manufacturers, then there should be simplification, and there should be extension of kind of common sense things. And at the ground level, the enforcer of that regulation has no idea, right? No idea at all. So how much success can you aim when you're not able to enforce? You can't expect him to enforce some fancy regulation. You need to kind of come up with simple thumb rule sort of regulations. It's simple for people to understand, for small business people to understand, simple to implement. I think that's when we will see success, and that's when across the board the industry will, not only mithai but all F&B industry in India will lift. When you demystify this whole thing, I think they've taken the wrong path for going for the home stretch, as they say, it's a long thing. We're starting now, right? It's going to take us 10-15 years. We can't frame what we want at the end of it now and expect people to change overnight. It's not going to happen.
Right.
That's my view.
No, and thank you so much for sharing that, because you're right. I mean, it's that traditionally, and of course, like Feroz had also mentioned, the scale of the industry and for the number of years that we've been doing it. For instance, you mentioned about Tirupati Balaji. You just look at the number of visitors that come in, and the kind of production that happens there, and the system and the process that's followed there, which has been done for generations. I mean, who would have thought of, ISO standards at that point, or that kind of implementation? So it's basic common sense, and it's probably going back to the traditional way and incorporating that for our own standards. And of course, step by step, because it is a domino effect. You take that one step, and then you eventually lead on to a lot more. Thank you so much for sharing on that. Um, Feroz, in July this year, and you briefly mentioned that in July this year, FSSAI released an order about new product category for Indian sweets and snacks and savories as well, in terms of registration and licensing. Uh, how do you see this benefiting your member base, and in terms of easing of compliance processes? And also through your convention and your expo, your members have an access to international vendors, international partners, and obviously a lot of learning and information sharing that happens there. So has that helped them with over time increasing their awareness and their compliance?
Yeah, as far as the standards are concerned, we were part of it when they were drafting. And the story is that when we had a discussion about making these standards, we were a little confused why only with us. But later on, when we started working on them, uh, it will actually simplify the things. Earlier, if suppose some manufacturer is making something unique, so they used to take proprietary food license from Delhi, and you cannot take a license from the local authority for food safety. But in this, when the standards are made and the standards on the all the categories are given, uh, you, there is hardly anything left to go for a proprietary food license. So you can just locally take your product license. This is this has simplified the thing. And it will have uh, the best part is in this approach, in this entire thing, FSSI is very, very open, and they are very supportive on this. And we provided them some of the suggestions which they really appreciated, and they said in the later part, when they will review the activity very soon, they will add up those things also. So I don't see anything left right now. And there is an open end approach also. If something new comes, we will be updating the standards for sweets and namkeen. There are already five standards we made for sweets, and three standards for the namkeen. If something beyond that comes, they are also open. We are also open. We will provide them suggestion, and they are ready to add those within the categories, or a new category can be made out of it. So it is going to simplify. As far as our event is concerned, which is going to take place later this year, 15th, 16th, and 17th December in Jaipur. Uh, I mean, in the previous issues also, in the previous editions also, we emphasized a lot on modernizing, and in these last 2 years, things have drastically changed. You know, though many manufacturers have started investing in right technologies, as we were just talking, Chaitanya, I have visited their kitchen so many times. And I mean, last year, I think, Chaitanya, you would have made record when we had this convention in December, I mean, in January, in Hyderabad. I think 3,000 to 4,000 people visited their kitchen, and wonderfully, they had wonderful experience also. But thing is that, still majority of mithai is made by hand, or because it is an artistic product, it is an art. So we are still binding laddus by hand, because there is nothing available in the world which is binding. You can get the shape for laddu, but that laddu will not be binded. And if you are using some technology which we are just doing some R&D with a couple of machinery manufacturers, it is binding so hard that the entire bundi of the laddu is broken and becoming a kind of a pinny laddu or a besan laddu. So we are little far uh, uh, with 100% automation. But this pandemic has at least created awareness in the industry that to create more faith in consumers' mind, we must have hygiene. We must walk on the lines what Chaitanya was telling. Show your kitchen to everybody. We must work on packaging, shelf life, and automation. If automation comes, automatically the hygiene comes. If automation comes, automatically you will go for the packaging. If packaging comes, the shelf life will increase. So everything is just holding each other's tail and circling round and round, and the entire benefit will go to the consumer. This pandemic has, Namkeen has already proven, they have already shown the way. People have trust to the max with the Namkeen industry. They know that it is automatic. At one point of time we were when there was a peak of lockdown was there, we used to go to the small shops, mom and pop shops, to buy groceries. We used to see people used to grab namkeen packets from the shelves as if this is the last food product left in the world. They used to just grab all the packets, that okay, at least nothing is left in the house, we'll eat namkeen. So they had that kind of faith on namkeen because they know it is by machine. Mithai industry, we were the biggest losers because we had so many raw materials in our kitchens, so many, milk products, everything got spoiled. Nothing, for 3 months we were not working, so things were really in bad shape. But after that, people started investing on all these points what I recently mentioned. This time, companies like Haldiram in Delhi, they sold 100% packed sweets in Raksha Bandhan, all packed in 400, 500 grams, 750 grams, 1 kg packet and boxes, and they got 25% growth compared to the last year. So this is, these kind of events, these kind of education programs are really helping them. And these places, as you rightly said, we have all the solutions under one roof, are going to help the industry immensely. We are going to receive so many international trainers from other parts of the world. So many trends we are bringing in the country, and so many people are already there existing. So many chefs. I was just wondering, looking at Chef Makan. I mean, we are having so many chefs introduced in the industry. I think whatever chefs lost their jobs in the hotel industry,
That's
they are
true.
all consumed by the mithai industry. So we are going to have a very, very safe future. Something, every day you will see a new mithai coming, a new trend coming, new ingredients coming. It is all because of the activities of the federation, our our open-minded people like who are there in the industry, these youngsters, and activities what we do under the roof for the World Mithai and Namkeen Convention. This all makes a great future for the industry.
That's wonderful to hear. And yeah, I mean, a lot of positives and, of course, a lot of confidence. And like you said, I mean, there are opportunities. It's really one, knocking on the right doors and maybe getting the right people who can tell you or direct you to the right door as well. And of course, you as a federation and your members are doing that wonderfully. So that's brilliant. Um, Chef, you mentioned about training. Hotels, of course, have a dedicated training, and you mentioned the frequency of training as well. They enforce standards, and then, of course, brands have their standards, so they add up a little bit
Yeah.
more. But in your experience, domestic and international, you've worked large and small brands both. Do you think that the awareness levels have increased over the years? And especially when you talk about hotels, of course, you have a set hierarchy, you've got training, which is there, but then training also comes in to a certain level, even in the kitchens. For instance, with right at the starting level or at the vendors, do you think that awareness level over the years has improved for them
Oh,
as well?
yes.
And
Oh, yes.
training access, because otherwise training is restricted to maybe commies and commies and above, commie 1, 2, 3 and above.
Yes. This FSI, this training and all this is a benefit for the each and every one. See, to fix the hygiene standard parameter and all these things and follow the FSI guideline, whatever uh, they everyone they had to be follow from the entrance of the gate. As soon as the supplies start from entrance of the gate, the hygiene standard implemented from start from the that time. So each and every person is a is like a chain in that. It start from the supplier, from the receiving guy, is goes to the store and goes to the kitchen, goes to the butchery and goes all going on. So everywhere there is a checkpoints. So everybody is training on the same process. So they had to be checked and they implement the standards. And when we give the training, nowadays even the entry level staff also very keen to be learn the standards. And when we're doing the hygiene standards, so weekly, the who's a chef in house, GM, they are doing the audits. Then there is a, if connected with the any brand, they are doing the audits. And the plus there is a mandatory from the FSI is a third party audit. This is a mandatory. So third party audit and then FSI also there. Now there is ISO also there and the HACCP and all these things audit uh, they are doing. So this one giving a confidence to the staff, vendor as well as to the guest also. And whoever the customer came, he knows he is eating in the very safe zone. And hygiene standard is implemented over here. On top of that, when they will give the FSI license, this is a mandatory. They have to be placed in the guest area, store, receiving, all everywhere they have to be placed. So which one is a visible to everyone? So they are following the guideline and all these things. Before, if you see these guidelines, they are coming in a one book. During my old times, there is coming in a one book that is also lying in the chef office. Once in a year, somebody open and they will read. Now all this thing is online. Anybody can go on the site, they can read it. Even start from the entry point, staff entry level and to the middle level or upper level or anyone. So this is a benefit for the everyone. All the even you will go to the out of international market also, they're also same way. HACCP they will be do. They're following the hygiene standard and all these things. So this is coming in the, like you can say, the streamline for the everyone, wherever you go in the world.
Excellent. No, and it's also good that you have freshers who are interested in getting training, which actually brings me to a point that we've got a couple of questions, but we also have some food technologists who are keen on internships with the Almond House and with mithai shops. So possibly Chaitanya and Firoz, maybe we can share that with you if there's opportunities that, because they would definitely like to associate. We do have one question for Firoz. This is from Disha. As the festival season is near, adulterated koa or sweet is a huge issue. So what is the take on this?
See, it is, I don't know why during only this festival season, these news comes in the media, immediately followed by some chocolate advertisement. It is actually, okay, it could be a throughout year issue. Let me be a little serious on this. Don't worry. We have already, last year we had sent a proposal to the FSSAI for, especially because koa is one of the biggest commodities we consume in the mithai. So what they have done, they have installed one van at each koa mandi across the country, starting from Delhi many months back. But now it is almost at each mandi wherever the bigger khoya activities takes place. We have installed with the help of we asked them to install. They have done it 100% on their behalf. And in the mandis, khoa is already controlled. And when it comes to a normal mithai wala who's buying khoa, we are buying from the right sources. Go for the right brands, right, mithai sellers who are actually modern and focusing on health and hygiene activities. You are assured that khoa is good. But still, as I said in my earlier answer, that we have to regulate these bigger commodities in such a way that we don't get all these issues from the our supply side. So this is a real big concern, which is already addressed to some extent, but definitely in future things will be better. So please buy sweets from the right places where you trust, where you been going, and that they are focusing on right products. Khoa is already addressed. So many things are yet to be addressed, which we will definitely focus and ask FSSAI to do focus on that.
Great. Yeah, so awareness and conscious and mindfulness in purchase and knowing where you're from, very important. We don't have any other questions. I'm just going to continue. And thank you so much for the email ID, Chaitanya. We will definitely share that. All right, so just a couple of closing remarks. Pandemic, of course, like Firoz also mentioned, the last 2 years have changed everything for far too many people. There's effects which are continuing, of course, for the industry. There's a lot of learnings that have come in from the last year in terms of how life has changed and how doing business has changed. So, in your respective domains, Chaitanya, starting with you, COVID, of course, led to closure of a lot of outlets for a very long time, and then turning into delivery only for a very long time as well. You've opened with precautions, and you're also offering, I saw 3 safe options for your customers who continue to want to opt for those. But as the situation continues to evolve, and unfortunately, there's just when you think you're improving, there's another variant that somehow comes in. Do you see going forward consumer preference changing to more online and staying more online in terms of convenience aspects or the options that you're given versus an offline experience at the store?
There are 2 kinds of online here, right? So there's delivery, and then there is a non-contact retail shopping experience.
E-commerce.
Well, then there are 3. So I mean, everything is e-commerce. Definitions are fluid, but what I'm referring to is either we deliver, the product reaches you at home, versus you get out of your house, but you don't expose yourself in our retail environments and that sort of a thing. So we have, curbside pickup. Yeah. We have an app that people can place an order in advance and it'll be ready outside for it to be dropped into your car. So we have 3 or 4 options that facilitate that. So I think, this is a contrarian view, but I think that as far as the alternatives to retail, I'm not talking about e-commerce, alternatives to stepping into the store, so to say, I think the bounce back from that has been really strong, and it has been a very temporary thing. People want experience. People want to go to these stores. I was hoping that people will, it'll be sticky for them, but that has not been the case. People, our retail footfall came back really fast as soon as the cities and municipalities allowed them to. Now, e-commerce, I think, Almond House has been active on e-commerce since the 1990s. So before we had internet at home, we had an Almond House e-commerce website. So this was designed for people living abroad from Hyderabad to send product to gifts to their family within Hyderabad back then. So we've had a long journey with e-commerce, and it has always been an uphill battle, always kind of tardy and kind of sluggish. But what the pandemic has kind of done is it has catalyzed that. I won't say it has transformed the whole thing, but it has definitely catalyzed it. There is a sense that we can buy these products online now. For example, we ship globally, we ship pan-India, and we also do hyperlocal deliveries from our website. And today we are doing more global shipments than we are doing pan-India shipments. So the business, it has lifted barriers, so now we're able to do business. People are ordering from, I have inquiries from Ecuador.
Wow.
You would have never thought. Right. So that once you have the competency as an organization to deliver an e-commerce experience somewhere close to or on par with your retail experience, I think then your gates are going to open widely. And it kind of gives you so much data as to where you can go when you want to actually physically expand, which cities do you want to go to, which countries do you want to go to. So I think there has been a shift. We were thinking till just before the pandemic that perhaps maybe e-commerce is not going to fly for this category. But that question is answered. And I think the future, definitely there is a big future for e-commerce for our category. And we've also learned this lesson that it's not about e-commerce or it's not about tech, it's not about IT in terms of having a website, having an e-store. The lesson for us post-pandemic is that every business, whether it's mithai or not, whether it's small or big, today is in some way or the other an IT business. And it's not about building a website. It's about building the infrastructure that it calls for. It's about building teams that can drive it. It's about building the competency within the organization that can drive it. That's when, this market is going to open up. Because all of us have put websites time and again, revamp it. The business never takes off. The business has now taken off for us, primarily because we've built that competency. It's not an outside in thing. It has to be something that you know how to do as a company internally. And that's when it kind of shifted for us.
Great to know. But you're right. I mean, of course, e-commerce opens, it gives you a borderless opportunity, right? Because Ecuador, of all places, to get orders from, which is brilliant because then the entire world is open for you. But yeah, I mean, with sweets, I think, like you said, with customers wanting to come back, it's an experience where you want to see it yourself. It's a different thing buying it online if you're not in a place where you can go offline, but you'd rather see the sweets yourself. You want to see that spread. And 9 out of 10 times, you're probably going in for 2 things, but you come back with 3 or 4 things because you see something else. Great. So, Feroz, of course, you mentioned about the next convention, which is in Jaipur in December. And I think that's your 4th convention that you have. But this is also the first convention that's happening ever since COVID started, because your last one, I think, was January last year. And now it's December, and the entire world has changed. The industry has changed completely. So, and of course, very different conditions that you're going to have this in, because the restrictions and everything, the precaution levels are going to be very different. So your member base, of course, deeply affected. And I know I read about the turnover as well that's expected for the industry. I think April last year was 1,000 crores, and with COVID impact, I think it's still expected at around 650,000, if I'm not mistaken, 650,000 crores. So what change in strategy do you see now with everyone gathering again after 2 rounds of COVID? And all the changes that have happened. So where do you see that change happening in terms of strategy for members and for the industry as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, as our Pradhan Mantri said in one of his speeches, आपदा में अवसर. So आपदा तो ये है, there's a issue, but you have to find out the opportunities in it. And the opportunity is to, as I said, focus more on branded products, focus more on packaging, focus more on shelf life. This provides an opportunity for us to go back and study all these things. People, what they were doing when we were, not selling, our shops were closed. Even me, Chaitanya, all of us, we used to come together. We used to have long chats over the Zoom. We used to have debates. We used to think about kya karna chahiye, how to do it. And I'm really happy that there is a set of young talents in the industry, they have really innovated things. They have really, wonderfully, you know, turned the tide in their favor during this pandemic time. Innovated, invested a lot on e-commerce, invested a lot on websites, e-activities, as well as hygienic activities. So this was an opportunity, and we really worked on it, and we already started getting good results. When it comes to the event like this, which is going to be there in December, this again gives us an opportunity where we can display more such products, more such solutions, where people can come and study about it. They can see by their eyes how to do these things in a good manner, and they can go back and buy those machines, trends, solutions. Earlier, I don't think hygiene was such a big issue. We used to have gloves, we used to have masks, but
Yeah.
people, they were not that aware. But today there's a huge market available for hygiene products. You see that there are, uh, I was I've just been to one of the factories in Noida, Mithas, the Mithas factory, Pushpendra Sharma, and I saw they are having a beautiful, at the entrance there is a corner there. They've got a beautiful, boxes available for the uniforms for their staff, and they provide 6 sets of washed, clothes for the working staff, and every day they come and drop their used, uniform in the box that automatically goes to somewhere, to an agency which is actually controlling them, that comes back with the, with all that washing and ironing and everything, comes back, so one can go find a ready uniform there and just pick the new one. In the evening they can just drop their this uniform in the box. So this is something, then that was the first exposure for me in a food factory of such kind. Then I started asking my friends, and I found that there are a couple of guys already doing it. They started doing it
Wonderful.
after this. So these are the opportunities this pandemic has shown us for the, events like us also, where we can have more focus on such activities. And even for us, we never thought that we would have a day where people will come in the event, and they will just, without queue, they will just get into the event, automatically getting registered, just like at our toll plaza in Dubai. You just pass through a camera, and the things are deducted automatically. In India, we just started having it, you have to stop for a while and then you go. But in Dubai, you just, at any speed, you just cross
Right.
under that scanner, and you are pay your things are paid. So in this event also, we are going to have, facility where people just come with this scanner, with their code, and they just scan to a place where automatically the badge will come, and they can just get into it. So many other things we are doing, obviously, with the hygiene and sanitizers and masks and testing kits. But again, it is giving a good opportunity to the event industry, where they can explore newer ways. Similarly with the food industry, so it's a new world, and there are, amazing opportunities for the hotel industry, for QSRs, for mithai industry, for namkeen walas, for, now you see, even our showrooms are changing into a whole solution for many activities. You go there, you get into a showroom of sweet. You will have a cafe there, you will have an ice cream corner there, you will have a chaat corner there, you will have so many things. People are adding newer things, people are adding new products. I Yesterday I been to place, they're making chocolates also, amazing chocolate gifts they are preparing within the mithai shop. So people are, innovating, and they've really not wasted their time, but invested their time at the right, on the right things. World is
That's
changing very fast.
absolutely.
We have to have such discussions every month to update our listeners that what has changed this month. So
That's great to know. And I mean, yeah, I mean, that obviously positive developments and the right kind of positive that you want, not the wrong kind. But also, I mean, it's a collaborative effort, and with it's through associations like yours, it's through members like yours. And as Chaitanya said, industry leaders are those who can actually lead with standards and with, with information and inspired. And that's what your members are doing, and the events that you're organizing that it's doing. That's brilliant. Chef, hotels and restaurants, of course, also very badly affected and still affected to quite an extent because there is capacity which is reduced. And as and when the caseload increases or decreases in some places, that changes. So do you see that going forward, operational point of view, do you see a lot more focus being given and a lot more importance being given to training, particularly when it comes to hygiene and safety, more than is already being given?
Yeah. See, hygiene safety, this is standard they are following and giving a training to the staff. This is to give the surety to the customer. You are in the right place and the safe zone. Whatever you are eating over here, this is taking care with our trained staff who will follow the guidelines. So whatever they
Post-COVID, do you
will,
see changes?
yes, before there is there, but after the COVID, the things are changed very fast. 360 degrees, the things are changed. Before everybody said, "चलो ठीक है चलता है यार, जो भी है." But now everybody is conscious to be focusing on the hygiene standard, whatever manner, either you are at home or anywhere, uh, whatever industry you are, the hygiene standard is there. And food safety, which one we're giving a training to the staff, and this one to ensure the guest. So you are, whatever you're eating, you are in the right place.
Right. Great. I think we don't have any more questions. I'm going to round up. Thank you so much, Chaitanya, Feroz, Chef Makan. Thank you for agreeing to speak to us and for the insights that you've shared. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and I'm sure our viewers would have got a lot more understanding. Of course, a lot of them from the industry, but a lot of others on the scale of the industry. How sweets are so much more than what we just think, and how much effort and passion goes into bringing us what we love the most. Very key takeaways, of course, from the conversation in terms of global standards as well as domestic standards. Of course, global standards probably not applicable as is, but even with Indian standards, there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in terms of adapting it to the grassroots level and the different requirements that you have. And of course, maybe getting back to our ancient wisdom, as Chaitanya very rightly said, we've done a lot of things right for a very long time. It's time that we start re-looking at that, re-looking at common sense, start applying a lot of that and implementing it. And of course, efforts by the government continues in various regulatory advice that they're bringing in, guidelines that they're introducing. And then it's leaders like yourself with the way that you lead and the way that your businesses lead and demonstrate what quality is, what standards are, and how it should be done. And of course, awareness that consumers have. So thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Thank you for your time. I'm just going to quickly wrap up with a little bit on Food Safety Works. We continue to have a monthly webinar series on various topics. We're welcome to get feedback on any other topics that are of interest. Our email ID is feedback@foodsafetyworks.in. Of course, to stay updated on our webinars, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Food Safety Works. We're also on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, with the handle being Food Safety Works. We regularly have insights and news on what's happening in the world of food safety. As a company, and we're a Bangalore-based company with offices in Mumbai and Delhi, we're committed to providing end-to-end solutions for food safety. We do have regular online trainings on various topics, including FOSTAC trainings as per the FSSAI mandate. And do visit our website, www.foodsafetyworks.com, and our newsletter as well to subscribe to it. Thank you so much again, Chaitanya, Feroz, Chef Makan. Thank you for your time. And hopefully we can have another round of conversation to take on. There's a lot more to speak and a lot more insights. And hopefully we meet again in a better world and better environment when things have improved. So thank you so much once again for your time and wishing you safe times ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Really
Firoz.
good discussion. A little, great information for the listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye.